Oftentimes, people want to know that the narcissist doesn't know that they have a problem so that people don't feel so bad at sacrificing their own self worth into a black hole of someone who just can't help it at all. You see, the question is, does the narcissist actually know that they're the problem? Or does the narcissist actually know that they are the problem? Let's dive in and check today. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness, growth, healing, and change. And we do it on all the different platforms: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter. We're on social media podcasts as well with Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and also Spotify. So check us out under Raw Motivations. If you guys want to hear a little bit of perspective from the wife, you can check out our podcast called Trauma, Drama, and Life. The first season is out and running good and strong. Second season is coming out in January. So we're super excited about that. And my wife also did confirm recently that she's going to start going live with me inside the NARC app. So if you don't have a chance to see what that is, you can go to narcapp.com, be able to check that out. It's a place for courses, challenges, community, and a great place for encouragement, where we have weekly lives that happen inside the app to be able to help promote people's healing, growth, and change inside there. And we also bring in monthly coaches or psychologists or different people from across the globe to help you in that process. You get to zoom in with other people from all across the globe, helping you understand that you're not alone and that you're not crazy. Check that out. It's at narcapp.com. If you want to talk to me sometime, a couple things that I focus on when I try to work with people, sometimes just defining what narcissism is and how it relates to your situation to give you clarity in the confusion that you just went through, specifically with a trauma bond, with the idea of, you know, in your mind, this isn't a good relationship, but you still want them. You still want to go back. You still want to interact with them. So we try to break that down and show you the story that you're actually believing and how to ground yourself in truth. As you get away from a toxic person, oftentimes you get into limbo land where it's like, this feels weird. I don't know what to do with this piece because I'm not getting actively abused. That doesn't feel peaceful because I still want to go back. And I'm still interacting. I'm still ruminating. I still have these intrusive thoughts. And I try to help guide people through that process. And then we set up healthy boundaries so that you don't go back to a toxic person and you don't get with a toxic person down the road. If you want to talk sometime, you can go to rawmotivations.com, click on one-on-ones. We'd love to interact with you there. Side note, coming up soon, you should see the Clarity Challenge. That's coming up. It's a 45-day Clarity Challenge to help you heal, grow, and change. And you can check that out at claritychallenge.net. So the question that we're talking about today is that does narcissists actually know or see that they're the problem, or do they know that they even have a problem? Well, a lot of times a narcissist, it comes across like they don't see the problem. They seem like they don't change. They seem like they don't care. There's a lot of different things you're just like, they obviously don't see it. Well, that didn't always start off that way, because a lot of times a narcissist knows that they have a problem, but how that problem affects and how that problem interacts with themselves and with their mask, that's where we get into some issues. So when we're talking about the narcissist having a problem, what it does is it starts to reveal something. It starts to reveal something of guilt and shame. You see, I know that I have a problem. I know that I had a problem. I know that I was doing stuff that was abusive in nature. Did I correlate it that way in my head? No, but I knew that there was an issue there. The problem is when I did something, it came across of like, wait a second, I feel guilt, which says I did something bad. As a result, I switch it into the idea of shame, which means I am bad. Therefore, my biggest problem in that moment is not the action that I actually did that produced the guilt and shame. It's the problem that that guilt and shame affects my mask, affects what I'm already putting out there, telling other people, hey, I'm a good person. I'm a loving husband. I'm a great dad. It affects the things that I'm putting out there. And then we have a bigger problem. Because in the narcissist's head, I have to be able to do something to get away from that. I have to be able to do something to justify or to switch around the story about that mask. Because that's what's the most important. Because I'm hiding the fact that I have a problem, which is triggered by that guilt and shame. So when we're talking about an aspect of, let's say with cheating, okay? I did something bad, therefore I am bad. I have a problem. I know I have a problem. I have to do something to resolve it no matter what. A lot of times you'll see a narcissist in the relationship that says, hey, I'll do whatever it takes. They mean it. They'll do anything to be able to manipulate and confuse another person. So oftentimes with a narcissist, they'll do anything to resolve it, whatever it takes, typically in three different ways. A lot of times they'll justify it. Well, you see, I provide, and I actually put a roof over your head. I actually help out by giving you money, by providing in this way. I actually come home. I actually show up. Like, I do this, I do this, I do this. Of like, I'm going to justify what I've just done because I'm still trying to put in my head and in my mind that I'm a good person. So when I would go out and I would have an affair and I would cheat, I would come back home and I would have to justify it. And that in my mind, I would just separate that reality, come back in and be like, I'm still a good person. And I'd have to feel better about myself in that regard. So I justify it. I came home. I did this. I provide. I'm a good person. And it helps me feel better about myself. Because the problem is that disconnect of feeling that guilt and shame about the shit that I just did. So a lot of times you have to justify it. The other thing is a lot of times you have to hide it. Okay? Hiding it oftentimes looks just like the lying aspect of like, that didn't happen. And the thing is, for the narcissist, I have to compartmentalize it. It's not that it didn't happen to me because I know it happened. I just came from cheating. I know that this just happened. I have to be able to change my mindset in that moment and I have to compartmentalize it up. That reality doesn't exist in this reality. They don't crisscross. They don't come across each other. So it's okay. That way I can leave the house, I can be with this person, I can cheat and say like, hey, I love you so much, and ignore that this reality actually exists. And then I leave that one and I come home and I go to this reality and I can say, hey, I'm faithful, I showed up, I provided. That reality doesn't exist. And in my head, I'm compartmentalizing it, I'm putting it aside, I'm using object constancy to be able to be like, wait a second, this doesn't actually exist because it's not in my life, it's not in my perspective. And as a result, I hide what's actually going on. It's not just that I hide it from other people, but I try to hide it from myself. Even along the lines of like trying to redirect my thoughts or the ideas so that I don't have to focus on something that I know is there. But if I just keep moving forward, I keep focusing on something else, then it'll just hide, it'll kind of like fade out and I won't have to worry about it. The third idea is the idea of manipulate it. And that's when we bring in the gaslighting. Like, not just like, I'm lying about it. So lying all the time, like, okay, this is not true. This didn't happen, all that kind of stuff. But then omitting lies. Well, I went over here to see so-and-so. I actually met up with so-and-so. Like that kind of thing, omitting a lot of different things. But then I also have to gaslight. I have to gaslight the other person to make them think that the reality that they're believing is false and it's their fault. Sometimes I have to gaslight myself as like, oh no, I am a good person. Even though my actions didn't show it, I'm just believing it the wrong way. I need to twist it in my head. That's the goal of like twist it so that I can feel better about myself. See, a narcissist realizes a lot of times that they have a problem. They have to justify it. They have to hide it. They have to manipulate it. They have to do whatever they can to avoid feeling guilt and feeling shame. You see, the hard part is resolving it. You see, resolving it without engaging with emotions or re-engaging with the inner child is pretty much impossible. Like, a narcissist isn't going to be able to resolve those two thoughts. They're not going to be able to resolve the lying, the manipulation, the justifying, all these different things in their own mind because they're not willing to be honest. Not willing to be honest about what's going on, of how they feel. And when it gets closer to that, it's almost like that inner child feels attacked. And they run or they fight. They do whatever they can to avoid the accountability, to avoid what's actually happening. The thing is, narcissists know that there's a problem. Do they have it 100% defined? No. A lot of times that's just like hidden, moved aside, let me keep moving forward so I ignore the problem and I don't have to actually acknowledge it. If I don't acknowledge it, it doesn't exist. If I don't see it, then it's not actually there. Thing is, they have to keep moving to be able to hide it from themselves and from other people. The hard thing is, as they continue to try to move forward, they're like trying to adjust what the problem is. And so as a result, you start to see different mask slips. You see different pieces of like, wait a second, that didn't make sense. Or wait a second, I see a different person here. Or wait a second, they're around somebody else. Now they are looking different. Now they have a different demeanor. Now they're talking different. Now they're saying different lies. All these different things. You're like, wait a second, something isn't matching up because they actually realize that what they're doing isn't acceptable in certain circumstances. So they have to change it because they know what they're doing isn't acceptable. People often ask me, like, are you overt or are you covert? I'm like, I'm mainly covert. But in the workplace, I was overt. In the workplace, I was an asshole because I could do whatever I wanted. I was like, I am this person. But then outside the workplace, I was completely different a lot of times. And so people will be like, oh, I wouldn't imagine he'd be an awful boss to work for. I wouldn't imagine he'd be this. Like, back and forth, no one had a clue because it changed based on the people that I was around of what was acceptable or what people would put up with. Okay? A lot of times the thing is with a narcissist is they won't acknowledge, they won't say this is what's actually going on or what's actually happening because they haven't done the work in identifying the emotions and working on the inner child, of going to therapy, of just being honest about what's actually there. To actually open up and see the shit that's inside feels like an impossibility for a narcissist because that vulnerability feels like a death. Which in reality it is. It's ego death. It's saying I'm not the best person and I can actually lower myself to say, hey, I need to be humble and say I need help. But the majority of the time, narcissists won't do that. So do narcissists know that they're a problem? Yes. Narcissists know they're a problem. A lot of times people want to hope and to think that they don't know they're a problem so they can feel justified in sacrificing their own self-worth into a black hole of someone who can't help it. When a lot of times they can, but they still choose not to because it's easier to run than it is to confront the shit that's inside.